isn't ideal at all. Looking really good too. That does not look good. Hello and welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. Before we get into the garden tour, I want to let you guys know that the epic gardening sale that's been going on for the past week goes on still through to the 27th through Memorial Day, but they've changed a couple things. So previously it was buy 3 get 1 free on their birdies beds. Those are the raised beds that we have in our greenhouse. We love them and I took advantage of that deal, and we more than have the rest of the beds to fill the greenhouse, and I'm so excited. But they've actually changed that sale to be 25% off of all birdies beds, which gives you the same discount. You just don't have to put the upfront cost for the 3 beds to get the 1 for free. You get 25% off of any of the birdies beds. So I've got my link and my coupon code in the description box and in the pinned comment, but as you can see, I do have a box to open before we head out into the garden tour as well. This arrived while we were gone today. I have been working this year to really intentionally put more in my perennial garden. I've talked about it over the last couple of years, but I've really made the effort this year to do a lot more in there. And we got our gooseberries delivered today. And this is Buster. He wants to unbox with us. I don't have any TREATs. We'll get you one. These were actually on sale as well, so took advantage of that. And they came bare root, and I do want to put these in some water so that they don't dry out too bad. I can't really get to them until tomorrow. They do have spines on them, so I need to be careful. Wow, these are good sized. Look at that. Their roots are actually not dried out. I got a little bit worried that maybe they would be, but they've packed it in this, you know, wet paper material. I bought some grow bags, which I'm really excited to grow in from Epic Gardening through that sale. And my hope is to put these in those when they arrive. This is a variety called the Hinomaki Red Gooseberry. Apparently the outside skin is a little bit tart, but the inside is really sweet. So you get the best of both worlds. We probably won't get any fruit until next year, but I look forward to it. On the way to the greenhouse, the kids' garden is plugging along. It's basically been surviving on just rainwater because we've gotten so much rain. It hasn't been a problem. I think Addie probably has one of the healthiest looking tomatoes on the whole homestead. Cucumbers are definitely on the way. You can still see we've got, you know, the remnants of hail damage from last week. Their green stalk looks pretty sad at this point. I transplanted these strawberries from their old garden. Strawberries don't love to have their roots disturbed at the wrong time of year, and they were already pretty established when I moved them over, but I am seeing signs of life. You can see here that the outside foliage has died back, but that's green there in the center. Even this one's got a little bit of green poking up. So they don't look happy right now, but I think most of them are gonna be okay. Who's talking back here? Who's talking? Is it Fury? Yeah. Hi, Feral. Hi, Fury. Hey, Margie Moo. How you guys handling these mosquitoes? You're feisty today. The mosquitoes have been absolutely relentless 24 hours a day. Normally they're kind of bad around dusk, like around this time, and sometimes even in the summer. Ow, I need to come outside with my veil on my face just to keep them out of my face. So hopefully we can get through this, okay? Greenhouse is looking greener. I have taken some of the strawberry plants that were putting out runners over here, and I put the runners in the cell tray right here. And very much like the strawberries out in the kids' garden, these guys are looking pretty sad. They should bounce back. Now, not all of them may not, but at least most of them should. And anything that doesn't happen to do well over in the kids' green stalk, we can replace with whatever happens to take root well out here. What I did was I just kind of came through here and took off any of these runners like this that looked like it was starting to put down a little root system. And I'd like to keep doing that. My husband asked me where I was gonna put all of the strawberries, and I told him anywhere, wherever I can. Our tomatillos have to be the fastest grower of the greenhouse so far. They've gotten big. That one's much bigger than this one. But this one is the first one to put on a tiny little fruit. This is my first time growing tomatillos. And from what I hear, you need 2 to get them to fruit. So we have 2 here. I did have some blooms on one before the other one was flowering, and those didn't set fruit. So I'm guessing that that's true. Look at there. Oh my gosh. Getting eaten alive already. Our Berry's Crazy Cherry tomato has quadrupled in size since we put it in. It's looking really happy. But the appearance of some of these tomatoes is one thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I know that damage on nightshades due to immunopyrilid poisoning or grazon poisoning. It's an herbicide. That has been a very valid topic of discussion in recent years. I'm noticing some curling on my tomatoes, but I want to explain to you why I don't believe that this is grazon or any kind of herbicide poisoning. I might be wrong, but I don't think so. So the tomatoes that I do have with some strange looking leaves on them, these were some of the first tomatoes that I started here in the greenhouse, probably in February. And you can see on this particular plant here, do you see these little tiny white flies? Well, their name suits them very well. That is the white fly. And we seem to have a white fly issue this year. We've never had that before, but these little bugs can and do transmit disease. And there are certain diseases that cause this curly looking leaf. It might even be the curly leaf tomato virus, something like that. And I think that that is what is afflicting the tomato plants that look funny. Because see, we've got this plant here, which this isn't ideal at all. That does not look good. See that? Right next to it, we've got a beautiful, healthy plant. This is one of the ones that we put in second. This one looks really good. This one looks really good. This one is all right. It's not ideal. It's not perfect. This one looks pretty bad. I mean, it's getting by. Some of these are even putting on some flowers, so I'm not super worried about them. They aren't the healthiest, but they're gonna be at least mildly productive, so I'm allowing it for now. We do have healthier plants. These guys were started later, and I'm just guessing that we had some white flies in the greenhouse earlier on that affected these plants when they were smaller, and they're just gonna have this virus throughout the season. I am not sure how catching it is between plant to plant. I don't think it's as contagious as something like blight, so for right now I'm leaving it. And as far as the white flies themselves go, they've been pretty easy just to take the hose and spray them off, and that really has had some of these plants recovering pretty well. They're not going to recover fully, but it's giving them a little bit of a leg up. I could put something like diatomaceous earth on the leaves. Here's the thing though, I have noticed predatory green lacewing insect in my greenhouse, and that is an insect that likes to eat whiteflies or their larvae, and I don't want to affect those beneficial insects. I'd like to be able to allow them to do their thing and not affect those guys, because those guys are going to do great work in the garden when I'm not even here. Since the last garden tour, I have filled these 2 beds with soil and plants. Got little tiny cherry tomatoes over here. That's what's going to be on this back archway, is all cherry tomatoes. Most of them are yellow. These ones are not yellow though. These are the strawberry tomatoes. These are blue cream berries. And on the end here, these are Super Sweet 100. I was talking in the last few garden tours about how I haven't gotten the Super Sweet 100 tomato seeds to germinate. I bought these pelletized seeds that are covered with this coating so that they're easier to see and easier to plant. And in my experience, they've been really hard to get to germinate. But people said, Heather, just make sure you soak them really, really well. And I did. And look, we've got germination of all of the Super Sweet 100 pots. So the plants are small. This is fine. Our growing season is long, and we're gonna get some Super Sweet 100s like we haven't had in a couple years. I did decide to put the eggplant on the back side of the trellis here in these beds. These guys are doing okay. This one is doing less okay. I don't really know what the deal is. I did water this morning. It feels pretty moist under there, so I'm just gonna leave it and see what happens, I guess. This guy doesn't look good either. This is a borage. I don't know what happened. See, this borage doesn't look good either. They just didn't like being transplanted. I don't know. I've never had issues with my borage and transplanting, but here we are. I have wondered a little bit if me putting fertilizer down into the planting hole and then putting the plant on top of that, maybe it was a little bit stressful for the plants. Maybe they didn't want their roots immediately touching those nutrients. It probably would have been smarter of me just to incorporate that fertilizer into the surrounding soil so it wouldn't be so concentrated at the bottom of the root ball. I think I'm gonna do that next season. Normally I don't really put anything but rabbit manure inside the planting holes. Rabbit manure is really, really mild. It's fine for seedlings, but I think some of the seedlings are a little bit stressed out with that. You can see some of the cherry tomato seedlings are also looking a little peaked and they're curling up a little bit. It can be normal and common for a tomato seedling to curl up some when they're transplanted, but they should bounce back. The new leaves that are coming in should be nice and full. We're gonna have to see. I had these two beds in here in the last garden tour, but this one was not full. It is full now. In this bed, I have our golden cross cabbages. These guys are quick turnaround. They're a 45-day cabbage. I don't know if it's 45 days from seed or if it's 45 days from putting in like a 6-week-old transplant, but I've got them in here now. It has been pretty hot so far. They're okay. A lot of brassica plants don't like to be above 85 degrees, and today was pretty warm, but so far so good. I intentionally did not put fertilizer at the base of these plants so we can see how they do. All the ground cherries that we have in here are looking wonderful. They're putting on lots of fruit already. Those are gonna be a while before they're ready. And I decided to trellis up our volunteer tomatoes. These are yellow currant tomatoes. They've started to put on blooms. We've got this one here. Happy, loving life. Our pepper row that is planted in ground has been doing okay. I've noticed at the ends of the day that they're sort of bowing their heads. I don't know if this is a response to heat or what. I do know that by morning time, they've perked back up. I know that I've heard that peppers really prefer afternoon shade, and they don't get that here. Should have put them on the other side of the greenhouse, but this is what we've got. With the rainy weather that we've been getting, the greenhouse has been flooding a little bit, and so these guys still have pretty wet feet. It wasn't until today, it hasn't rained in about 4 days, but it wasn't until today that right here started to dry out. You can see it's still a little bit wet, and we're getting some more rain tonight. It's supposed to rain for a whole week. Off and on, of course, but I am a little bit worried about the peppers. They had started to flower. Yeah, there's a little fruit right here. This is a Tamdu jalapeno, which is kind of like a mild jalapeno. It's a little baby. I have noticed that some of the blossoms are dropping off, and that can be due to stress, probably from being overwatered by Mother Nature. The green stalk is looking lovely. I know I said that we would plant some Kalima bush beans on the next garden tour. I left my seeds inside the house and the sun is setting, and I want to make sure to show you the whole garden, so we're not going to do that this time. But our Peruviana zinnia have started to open up their flowers. Isn't that so cute? I just love it. It doesn't smell like anything. Like with many cut flowers, as we cut them and put them in cute little vases inside the house, they'll put on more and more blooms. The celery is looking more and more like a big stalk of celery every day. This pink one is looking really good too. A couple of days ago, I planted our pumpkin patch. So there's not gonna be much to see, but just in case you missed that video, I wanna show you the situation. Here's our pumpkin patch. It is an old pig yard that we will use for pigs again. We laid down this weed fabric, intending to pull it back, till the area, and put a strip of corn in here. But we've nixed that idea recently and decided just to burn some holes in the weed fabric and plug in some Dutch fork pie pumpkin seeds. They're underneath the soil here, and by next garden tour, we should see some seedlings. I've always wanted some kind of pumpkin patch. I just think it's beautiful. I love going to the jack-o'-lantern pumpkin patch at different farms every year, and to have one here, it's a dream. So hopefully we can achieve that this year. Mainly, we haven't done it because we've had a really hard time with most squashes here. They just get eaten up by squash bugs and squash vine borers, and this variety is supposed to be resistant. Hello, kind sir. Hi. We gave you your treat. Oh, good burp. We're gonna go to the raised bed garden now. Check that out. Okay, you coming? Oh, he's gonna lead the way. Good boy. All this tall grass here amidst the mowed grass. This is where my husband dug a trench so we could put the fans in the greenhouse. The trench is connected to the electricity in our barn, and he didn't get a chance to fill in the trench before all of that rained, so it's still a trench. Hi babes, how are ya? Hi, good seeing you. They've been together for a little while. She should have gone into heat. I didn't see it. The last time Nefarious had a girlfriend, he was a silent breeder with her, so I'm guessing that's what happened here. We're just gonna have to see. Before we get too far into the raised bed garden, I want to acknowledge one of the things that I get the most questions on the garden tours this year. They say, what is that in your walkway? I need to know more about it. These are birdhouse gourds. I grew these along this trellis last year. Honestly, I fully expect to see some volunteer birdhouse gourds around here somewhere. So far, I have not. These took a lot longer to cure than I expected. They're fully cured now, and I've just kind of left them here. Eventually, we can and we will do something with them. Those guys are the reason that this trellis looks wonky like that. They got real heavy, and I think most of the bigger gourds were on this side. The wind was blowing from the west, and you know, the cattle panel's never been the same. So as you can see, the U-shaped bed over here looks very different. This is where we had all that lettuce, and I had a couple broccoli plants right here. I have since done what is called chopping and dropping in this bed. So I tore the plants and just laid them back down in the bed. The idea behind that is to allow the plants to just feed the soil. Whatever they took out of the soil is getting back, so we can recycle those nutrients. Most of these plants were very heavily damaged by about 9 inches of rain that we got in the span of about a week, plus 2 different hailstorms. They were done. They had had enough, and it doesn't go to waste when we can just feed it back to the garden and turn it into something else. You can see these holes. I planted some sunflowers. I saved these seeds in 2021. And if my memory serves me correctly, these are not super tall, but they're different colors, like reds and oranges and things like that. We're gonna have to see what comes up. The lettuces that are left on either side of the pathway here, they have started to go to seed. You can see the center stalk of this plant is getting tall. That is a very good indication that this plant is going to go to seed. I don't see any seed heads yet on any of these, but I thought that I'd leave these. I don't need to put anything right here immediately, and this is gonna be pretty beautiful. Plus, what this is going to allow is one of my favorite things. It's going to allow these lettuces to go to seed, and very likely that seed is going to spread. I can save some of it, but I can also kind of half expect some volunteer lettuces for I don't know how many years. I really like a good volunteer. The lettuces down here don't really, maybe they are getting a little bit tall in the middle, but they're not as advanced as the ones in the walkway, so we're still able to pick salads from these. Now this side is totally blank for now. I do have a plan for this space. I'm gonna put loofah here, and I thought I had loofah seed. I can't find it anywhere, so I reordered some, and I'll be plugging in 1, maybe 2 loofah plants on this side of the trellis. These are the 2 kohlrabi plants that I have. This is the one that we saw last week that I was so proud of. It got too saturated with the rain and it split. Kind of a bummer. That is the biggest kohlrabi bulb that I've ever been able to grow, but we don't get to eat it this year. I left it in there so you guys could see it. The beans have been putting on their flowers. You know what that means? We'll be collecting beans very soon. And there's, I don't know how many plants here. I put them about every 4 to 6 inches. These guys didn't love the hail either, but they have bounced back really well. I've noticed that our tomatoes that we have here, these are the Tiny Tim tomatoes. These guys have started to get some disease along the bottom. We have had just so much rain. I'm not really surprised. It's good for me to remove these diseased leaves. As I mentioned, we're just gonna get more rain this week. And with that moisture, the disease is just gonna spread. I have a feeling this is not going to be a super amazing tomato year for us, but wet years just wouldn't be. We have had those cabbage looper moths really enjoying the kale plants, but you know what? They don't look too bad. There's still a lot of very full, intact foliage in here. And I did not bring my harvest basket out to the garden today. But that's okay. These guys will wait for me. But I've been very pleased. These guys have hung on well. I have collected a lot of kale, and I will be growing some fall and winter kale. So I will be coming out and harvesting what I can, but I'm not willing to fight the battle with the cabbage looper right now. She's gonna win, and it's okay. I got what I needed. Some of these elephant garlic plants, the leaves have started to turn yellow. This is quite common when the plants are getting ready to be harvested. The ones that I have back here were left in here from last year, so these are older and more established. These will probably come out first. The ones that are over here are younger. I can't remember when I planted this. It might have been February. See, we've got these scapes that I've been picking off so we can get nice big bulbs. My husband actually made pasta salad for dinner, and we sauteed some of these up and put it in. It was so yummy. I don't have my harvest basket, so I guess these need to go in my pocket. It looks like we are close to needing to do a second harvest on the oregano. I told you guys it would bounce back. I think it's been less than a month since I did that really major haircut over here. It has been so wet here that the farmers that plant these large monocultures around our house, they haven't really been able to plant. There is a little bit of corn up the street, but normally across the street they have planted already, and they have not, and that is very unusual. I'm a little bit worried because it's grass over there right now, and when they go to plant, they are going to spray again. They're going to spray Roundup, and depending on the way the wind is blowing, that can and does affect our garden. It's not something I look forward to, but one thing that I can do, and I've done it before and it works really well, is I have two different sprinklers that I have set up and ready to go. And if we see them pull into this field, we can come outside and turn on the sprinklers, and it genuinely does knock the Roundup out of the air or something. It helps, and the plants do not suffer. If I don't do that and we do get some blowover, we will see a little bit like what you saw in the greenhouse, where the plants that previously were nice and full and the leaves looked good, they'll kind of shrivel up on the tops. They normally rebound just fine, but it's still not fun. Look at this fat asparagus. I said I wasn't going to be harvesting, but some of this stuff, some of this stuff I can't ignore. This asparagus patch we've had here since 2021, and I've been harvesting through about May every year since 2022. So in 2022 and in 2023, I stopped harvesting by June, and last year I kind of regretted that. I was looking at the progress of the growth of the bed throughout June and realized that I probably could have harvested. So this year the plan is to harvest through June and see how they do. In theory, once your asparagus is well established, you can harvest heavily like that. Obviously, at some point you do need to let the plants just grow, or they're gonna get, nutrient starved. Some of these little bitty ones we have left in because there's not much to that, so I might as well leave that and let it feed the plant. But anything larger than like a pencil, that's what I've been picking. You can see our grapes have come back pretty well. They had some damage from hail that sort of topped the plants, but they've recovered pretty well. See, this one right here has a new growing point, so that's encouraging. You see this space over here, it's kind of a mess. This probably will be a mess the whole rest of the year. I'm gonna set my asparagus down right here, don't let me forget it. But this was the kids' old garden space. I had laid down weed fabric, hoping that it would keep the weeds at bay. I think weed fabric works best in areas where it's not basically pure mud, because when you get a lot of rain and you walk on this space, sometimes even if you don't, the mud just seeps up through, and what that does is it creates soil on top of the weed fabric, and if you don't manage that by literally scraping it off and sweeping it, the weed seeds will grow straight into that, and they will grow through the weed fabric, the roots will, and it becomes pointless. So I'm not going to tear this weed fabric out or anything. I'm going to leave it, but I am reclaiming this space. I recently purchased some Sunbelt grapes. These guys are more like a juicing grape and are good for jellies. I did put down fertilizer straight into the planting hole, so I'm hoping they're going to be all right. That has worked fine for some things and not fine for other things. So if they are not fine, I know where to get some more. I bought these from a local Amish nursery and they were $5 each, so not too bad, but this is where they're going to live. And I also have these two dwarf trees in here. These are the Romeo and Juliet cherries. One of them flowered this year, I think it was this one, but they need the other one in order to become pollinated to produce fruit. So we didn't get any fruit, which is fine. First year for trees. Generally, you should allow them to establish their roots and not worry about fruit. I did not do that to my bonfire peach trees that are in the greenhouse. We didn't look at those, but I'll be sure to show you those next time. Part of our perennial space is actually our front yard, and I don't show this area often enough. I have quite a few fruit trees out here. This is our fruit cocktail pear tree. So this tree has more than one pear variety growing on it. I purchased this at some point last year, and really it didn't do much last year at all. It was doing all of its work underground. But the rootstock of this tree is a Bartlett pear, and grafted onto it is a Flemish Beauty and a red D'Anjou. Now right here it did have a Kiefer pear coming out here earlier in the year. This got snapped off somehow, kind of sad, but we still have 3 pear varieties growing on this tree. This tree was put in, I think, 2021. This is a Moonglow pear, and earlier in the year I saw little bitty baby pears up there, but then we did get a late frost. I don't know if that affected them or maybe birds got them, I'm not sure, but we're not getting pears out of this tree this year, but I have high hopes for next year. This is a tree that I have tried to grow for many years, and something keeps harming my persimmon. Sometimes it's a dog, sometimes it's a lawnmower, sometimes it is Japanese beetles, but we have gotten this tree an entire year. It's put on a lot of new branches and foliage, so I have high hopes. It's a little bit spindly. It did have a support stake next to it all last year, so it didn't get particularly strong. I removed the stake. It's been through some decent high winds and has tolerated them well, and what that's going to do is going to help strengthen the trunk, and trees around here, they need it. They need strong trunks. I recently purchased 2 different apple trees. There's this one right here, and there's one over there. We'll look at that. These were sold by the local Amish. This is a Sweet 16 apple, and then this one is the Gallant apple. In looking at both of these varieties, I think it was this one that had flowers on it earlier in the year. There's actually a little tiny flower. Can you see this little flower right there? They do need another apple variety to pollinate, and that apple down there did not flower this year. So this is another thing that I am looking forward to for next year. I did read online that the best pollinator for this particular apple variety is a Granny Smith. I don't have one of those, but I can get one if I need to. I've got like a blank space over there, kind of a blank canvas that I'm sort of holding out and waiting, seeing what I can use it for. I might put raspberries out there eventually. And then right here, this is a magnolia. It's been here a little while. So far, no flowers. Someone had told me that you need 2 magnolia trees for them to flower. Do you guys know anything about that? I know that fruit trees, they'll flower. They might not set fruit without 2 of either the same variety or of different varieties, but I hadn't heard that about magnolias. This one is a southern magnolia. I do have 5 different elderberry plants in the front yard here. They're not all doing really awesome. They've been here, this will be their 3rd summer, and they are kind of puny. It looks like maybe a little bit diseased, but really these guys are the first thing to get hit if they spray Roundup over there. Now this is not damage from Roundup. This kind of looks like rust, but I am really not super proficient in diseases of trees and things, so I'm not quite sure. I know that this one on the end looks a lot greener and more full, but can you see this? That does not look good. And I'm not entirely sure that it can be remedied or saved. Just like with the tomato plants, it might not be overspray damage from Roundup or soil contamination. It could be some kind of virus that was given to the plant via a bug. I have a really big elderberry plant that we walked by. This guy right here, you see him? He's been doing really well. There's no real obvious signs of disease right here. Tons and tons of blooms. I've actually made 4 batches of elderflower cordial already, and I'd like to make more. I'd like to make as much as I can to take advantage of this bounty. But believe it or not, there's actually 2 plants here. This really big healthy one is 1 plant, and then next to it we've got this plant. And this has looked like this. It grows in like this every single year. I'm thinking that it's diseased. The plants have been putting out little runners and babies, and not all the leaves look totally awesome. Most of them do look pretty good. I probably won't leave this particular plant here, but then you see this? It just doesn't look good. Like I said, they have not sprayed across the street since I think it was early March. Like, I hadn't even dreamed of putting the garden in yet because we were still getting freezes. I genuinely think it's disease because they come up looking like that, and this was put in 2020, so this is the 4th year for this situation here. Anyhow, if you have some insight, I would love to hear it. And if you'd like to hear all about that elderflower cordial, I made a video on that recently.